We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. It's a beautiful day here in Idaho. I am unable to put a blind up I'm at my office in the back window, so lighting might be a little over the top. I apologize for that, but glad to be here. And I want to welcome everybody here in the sanctuary, of course, and then anybody that might be listening later or listening currently on Awakening Together Radio. Let's say a prayer that will help me settle down. I have a hard time with adrenaline, so we need to calm it down a little bit. Dear Holy Spirit, I thank you so much for this time together, this time to come and share and teach what I would learn, for us all to join together in love and allow thy will, which is love, to be done. I ask that everyone joining us will be open to what is for them, that we all may hear what we need to hear, that we may set aside the chatter, that we may set aside the doubt, set aside any fear, any comparisons, any judgments that tells us we are anything other than who we really are. In gratitude, I thank you. Amen. Alrighty. Want to talk just a little bit about Awakenings Together core values, what we're about, and then highlight which core value I had wanted my talk to represent. So we are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And I chose core values. First core value, that we trust everyone is led by unique inner guidance to one experience called awakening, which is the realization of one true self. We live this value by supporting one another on different paths of awakening. And I think one of the reasons why I think that value embodies what I want to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about desire and having to look at those things that kind of move us in our direction on a spiritual path. And sometimes that leads us to having to do some purification on those values and those desires to get down to what we truly want. And that does take unique inner guidance. It's something that we have to work with with our inner wisdom, because nobody can do that work for us. So that's why we do it all together. And we are going to have a reading. Audrey's going to read for me. Bless her heart. I appreciate it. We are reading from, it's a book by Krishnamurti right here. It's called Think on These Things. And Krishnamurti was he is an Indian philosopher. And this book was put together in the late 60s, I believe, from talks that he gave mostly at schools. So it is directed, the audience is youth, and he taught on many subjects, and one of the things that he did talk about, he talked a lot about meditation, but he was a proponent of what they call radical social change, and was trying to guide people how to question things, how to question society, etc., which I think is a beautiful lesson to be taken into the youth at the time. It amazes me when I think about, as I was reading this stuff, that if you grew up in the West and you went to school, there was nothing like this even breathed about in any of the school systems that I was in. So I just think it's amazing to, be, in junior high or high school and have someone like this come in and talk about these things, and to ask the youth to think on these things and question some of that stuff. So it is, of course, kind of a long reading. I didn't know how to chop it down. So again, I'm saying thank you to Audrey ahead of time for reading for me. So I'm going to let go of the mic. Audrey, have at it.
Thank you, Kelly. This chapter is called Renewing the Mind. The other morning, I saw a dead body being carried away to be burnt. It was wrapped in bright magenta cloth, and it swayed with the rhythm of the 4 mortals who were carrying it. I wonder what kind of impression a dead body makes on one. Don't you wonder why there is deterioration? You buy a brand new motor, and within a few years, it is worn out. The body also wears out. But don't you inquire a little further to find out why the mind deteriorates? Sooner or later, there is the death of the body, but most of us have minds which are already dead. Deterioration has already taken place. And why does the mind deteriorate? The body deteriorates because we are constantly using it, and the physical organism wears out. Disease, accident, old age, bad food, poor heredity, these are the factors which cause the deterioration and death of the body. But why should the mind deteriorate, become old, heavy, dull? When you see a dead body, have you never wondered about this? Though our bodies must die, why should the mind ever deteriorate? Has this question never occurred to you? For the mind does deteriorate. We see it not only in old people, but also in the young. We see in the young how the mind is already becoming dull, heavy, insensitive. And if we can find out why the mind deteriorates, then perhaps we shall discover something really indestructible. We may understand what is eternal life, the life that is unending, that is not of time, the life that is incorruptible, that does not decay like the body which is carried to the ghats, burnt, and the remains thrown into the river. Now, why does the mind deteriorate? Have you ever thought about it? Being still very young, and if you have not already been made dull by society, by your parents, by circumstances, you have a fresh, eager, curious mind. You want to know why the stars exist, why the birds die, why the leaves fall, how the jet plane flies. You want to know so many things, but that vital urge to inquire, to find out, is soon smothered, is it not? It is smothered by fear, by the weight of tradition, by your own incapacity to face this extraordinary thing called life. Haven't you noticed how quickly your eagerness is destroyed by a sharp word, by a disparaging gesture, by the fear of an examination or the threat of a parent, which means that sensitivity is already being pushed aside and the mind made dull. Another cause of dullness is imitation. You are made to imitate by tradition. The weight of the past drives you to conform, toe the line, and through conformity, the mind feels safe, secure. It establishes itself in a well-oiled groove so that it can run smoothly without disturbance, without a quiver of doubt. Watch the grown-up people about you, and you will see that their minds do not want to be disturbed. They want peace, even though it is the peace of death. But real peace is something entirely different. When the mind establishes itself in a groove, in a pattern, haven't you noticed that it is always prompted by the desire to be secure? That is why it follows an ideal, an example, a guru. It wants to be safe, undisturbed. Therefore, it imitates. When you read in your history books about great leaders, saints, warriors, don't you find yourself wanting to copy them? Not that there aren't great people in the world, but the instinct is to imitate great people, to try to become like them. And that is one of the factors of deterioration, because the mind then sets itself in a mold. Furthermore, society does not want individuals who are alert, keen, revolutionary, because such individuals will not fit into the established social pattern, and they may break it up. That is why society seeks to hold your mind in its pattern, and why your so-called education encourages you to imitate, to follow, to conform. Now, can the mind stop imitating? That is, can it cease to form habits? And can the mind, which is already caught in habit, be free of habit? The mind is the result of habit, is it not? It is the result of tradition, the result of time, time being repetition, a continuity of the past. And can the mind, your mind, stop thinking in terms of what has been and of what will be, which is really a projection of what has been? Can your mind be free from habits and from creating habits? If you go into this problem very deeply, you will find that it can. And when the mind renews itself without forming new patterns, habits, without again falling into the groove of imitation, then it remains fresh, young, innocent, and is therefore capable of infinite understanding. For such a mind, there is no death, because there is no longer a process of accumulation. It is the process of accumulation that creates habit, imitation, and for the mind that accumulates, there is deterioration, death. But a mind that is not accumulating, not gathering, that is dying each day, each minute, for such a mind, there is no death. It is in a state of infinite space. So the mind must die to everything it has gathered, to all the habits, the limited the imitated virtues, to all the things it has relied upon for its sense of security, then it is no longer caught in the net of its own thinking. In dying to the past from moment to moment, the mind is made fresh. Therefore, it can never deteriorate or set in motion the wave of darkness. The questioner asks, how can we put into practice what you are telling us? Krishnamurti responds, you hear something which you think is right, and you want to carry it out in your everyday life. So there is a gap between what you think and what you do, is there not? You think one thing and you are doing something else, but you want to put it into practice what you think. So there is this gap between action and thought. And then you ask how to bridge the gap, how to link your thinking to your action. Now, when you want to do something very much, you do it, don't you? When you want to go and play cricket or do some other thing in which you are really interested, you find ways and means of doing it. You never ask how to put it into practice. You do it because you are eager, because your whole being, your mind and heart are in it. But in this other matter, you have become very cunning. You think one thing and do another. You say, that is an excellent idea, and intellectually I approve, but I don't know what to do about it, so please tell me how to put it into practice. Which means that you don't want to do it at all. What you really want is to postpone action, because you like to be a little bit envious or whatever it is. You say, everybody else is envious, so why not I? And you go on just as before. But if you really don't want to be envious, and you see the truth of envy as you see the truth of a cobra, then you cease to be envious, and that is the end of it. You never ask how to be free of envy. So what is important to see is to see the truth of something and not ask how to carry it out, which really means that you don't see the truth of it. When you meet a cobra on the road, you don't ask, what am I to do? You understand very well the danger of a cobra and you stay away from it. But you have never really examined all the implications of envy. Nobody has ever talked to you about it, gone into it very deeply with you. You have been told that you must not be envious, but you have never looked into the nature of envy. You have never observed how society and all the organized religions are built on it, on the desire to become something. But the moment you go into envy and really see the truth of it, envy drops away. To ask, how am I to do it, is a thoughtless question. Because when you are really interested in something which you don't know how to do, you go at it and soon begin to find out. If you sit back and say, please tell me a practical way to get rid of greed, you will continue to be greedy. But if you inquire into greed with an alert mind, without any prejudice, and if you put your whole being into it, you will discover for yourself the truth of greed. And it is the truth that frees you, not you're looking for a way to be free. The questioner then asks, why are our desires never fully realized? Why are there always hindrances that prevent us from doing completely as we wish? And Krishnamurti responds, if your desire to do something is complete, if your whole being is in it without seeking a result, without wanting to fulfill, which means without fear, then there is no hindrance. There is a hindrance, a contradiction, only when your desire is incomplete, broken up. You want to do something, and at the same time, you are afraid to do it, or you half want to do something else. Besides, can you ever fully realize your desires? Do you understand? I will explain. Society, which is the collective relationship between man and man, does not want you to have a complete desire, because if you did, you would be a nuisance, a danger to society. You are permitted to have respectable desires like ambition, envy. That is perfectly all right. Being made up of human beings who are envious, ambitious, who believe and imitate, society accepts envy, ambition, belief, imitation, even though these are all imitations of fear. As long as your desires fit into the established pattern, you are a respectable citizen. But the moment you have a complete desire, which is not of the pattern, you become a danger. So society is always watching to prevent you from having a complete desire. A desire which would be the expression of your total being and therefore bring about a revolutionary action. The action of being is entirely different from the action of becoming. The action of being is so revolutionary that society rejects it and concerns itself exclusively with the action of becoming, which is respectable because it fits into the pattern. But any desire that expresses itself in the action of becoming, which is a form of ambition, has no fulfillment. Sooner or later, it is thwarted, impeded, frustrated, and we revolt against that frustration in mischievous ways. This is a very important question to go into, because as you grow older, you will find that your desires are never really fulfilled. In fulfillment, there is always the shadow of frustration, and in your heart, there is not a song, but a cry. The desire to become a great man, a great saint, a great this or that, has no end, and therefore no fulfillment. Its demand is ever for the more, and such desire always breeds agony, misery, wars. But when one is free of all desire to become, there is a state of being whose action is totally different. It is. That which is has no time. It does not think in terms of fulfillment. Its very being is its fulfillment. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Thanks very much. You read that beautifully. So I had titled my homily today that we do what we want to do. And I believe from my experience that that is ultimately the truth. You know, we seek what we desire above all else, and that's usually what dictates our actions and our movements through the world. And our journey usually just reflects that group of desires. So many of my recent nudgings and my guidance on what things I am to look at at this time in my journey. This desire stuff keeps coming up. So, you know, I thought it would be kind of a little simple investigation, and it has turned into a literal can of worms, and it just keeps going. So it's kind of like that reading. It was, it just brought up more than I had expected. So trying to bring it down to, you know, a place where I can just kind of chat at some of the high points has been a challenge. I did jot some notes, so I will try and stay on track with the notes. So I know from an intellectual standpoint that to want awakening, to want God above all else, is certainly a necessary ingredient to this spiritual path that I have chosen to be on. But the intellectual understanding of that does not seem to create this energy that guides me through things and allows me to make decisions based on what I truly want in that spiritual aspiration. So I, you know, save for some incredibly beautiful spiritual experiences that I have had, and they have been pretty spontaneous. They haven't been really contrived by me. They have been points in time. If I look back at them, there were points in time when, and I can consciously remember having to make a conscious choice for one thing over another. So like one time it was, I was going through a breakup, and my pattern was certainly to spiral downhill into, you know, all the whys and how comes and not lovable and all that stuff. And I was driving home from work, and I had like 3 boxes of Girl Scout cookies in the back seat that I kept looking at in the rearview mirror. And my plan was to truly just go home and comfort myself with these 3 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. And I walked in the door, and this idea came across that said just very clearly, you do not have to do that. And so what I did instead was I did something loving for myself. I can't remember what it was. I remember putting on some really cute slippers and making myself some tea and just sitting down and comforting myself. And from that one decision, an incredible experience took place inside of me. And I would never be able to put words to that. But I knew I was loved. I knew that the things that I had sought for in my life, the majority of things that I had sought for in my life were meaningless and nothing. And that all the pain I had put myself through, not measuring up, not being perfect, not being what I thought my parents wanted, not being what I thought this boyfriend wanted, any of that stuff, none of that stuff mattered. And I just sat for a time in this experience of love and knowing who I was. Now that those experiences don't, for me, have not lasted. I mean, I probably was able to maintain that sense of connection for, you know, for some time, but eventually the ego creeps back in there and another list of desires starts kind of accumulating. So even as I'm on this journey, and I'm on this journey in awakening together, and I have these incredible teachers available to me, and all this beautiful truth teachings, I am not constantly connected with the idea of awakening as my true desire. And so my work seems to be, what I'm guided to do is to look honestly at, during periods of time, what I am desiring. And it's kind of like in the reading, you know, Krishnamurti was talking about envy, that to say, I just want to be rid of envy. It's the same as saying, I want to be rid of my judgments. I want to be rid of this laziness. I want to be rid of my selfishness or my self-centeredness, resentments, whatever that might be. You know, we intellectually have this great idea that, yes, that's what I need to do, yet there's this gap. And we want somebody else to answer the gap, that you do this. This is how you do it. This is how you will fix that. Kind of a fix-it society. And I've tried that. I want somebody else to tell me how to do it, and then I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible for the actions I might need to take. So one of the things that spurred this on was I have a very hard time getting up in the morning. I hit the snooze button, and I really do think it is so symbolic for me. It is a metaphor of my journey to awakening, that I hit a snooze alarm, and I postpone. I think Krishnamurti used that exact word. You know, you think you want to be rid of these defects or these things that get in the way. You think you want to be rid of envy. I think I want to be rid of laziness. That's what I think it to be. You think you want to be rid of it, but you continue, you really want to postpone it. You really want to keep it because there's something in that for you, right? A little extra sleep, just not ready to face the day, or whatever that is. So I always am looking at, you know, do you really want to get up? I want to get up earlier so I can spend time doing the spiritual practice, right? You know, there's reading to do, there's journaling to do, there's contemplating to do, meditation to do, all those kinds of things. So I tell myself that that's what I want. And yet I hit snooze. I hit snooze. I want sleep more for whatever reason. It's the same thing about in the world wanting to lose. I have been wanting to lose 10 pounds for the last 2 years. And I think that that's truly what I want to do. But yet there are some other things that I want more, like I was driving home the other day from work, and I just had to pull into the Maverick and get a donut. So you find that there are other things that you want more than that. And, you know, when it comes to the ego, there seems to be an endless amount of desires and wants. And it is to remain focused is challenging with all the distractions, all the squirrels, all the things. The idea of having I'm reminded that the idea of having a spiritual aspiration is what can help bring us back, what can help anchor us, and what can help guide us through those times when we are thrown off course. And also to be reminded of what we want. And if I'm in a space, one of the things that I've been guided to, if I'm in a space where I'm not consciously, completely anchored in my spiritual affirmation or my spiritual desire for awakening, that one of the ways I can increase that is through listening to truth teachings without trying to understand it, or without going about it like it is a class to be mastered. I think Regina's new, she's going through the book with David Carse's book, and she had mentioned in her first class with that book, her first teaching with that book, he has a quote, he's quoted as saying, you don't need to engage this part of the brain. I'm paraphrasing. You do not think you. Thank you, Don. Perfect, brilliant stillness. Yes, you don't need to, you don't listen to this kind of stuff in the same way you would be listening to a class that you were trying to get all the information for. You need to listen to truth teachings as you listen to the leaves, the wind go through the trees, as you listen to the sounds of morning, the birds. You just be in experience with the truth teaching. It's not something that you attempt to master or own. Kind of like what Krishnamurti was talking about. We don't do these things to then be able to imitate. We don't do these things in order to just be acceptable to society. It's the motive is different that we use. So that has been helpful to me, and to just allow myself to listen. And there's so much I don't understand, and I have to come to all these teachings with the I don't know mind, because I have an ego that really does want to figure all this stuff out. I'm humbled to be a part of this group, to be a reverend in Awakening Together. And, but I have, you know, I've had more experiences of being humbled by how much I don't know in the last year than I have ever had a sense of making any progress. And I, you know, that's hard to admit. That's hard to admit that that I struggle with some of the fundamentals. So one of the things that Awakening Together reminds me of is that no matter where I am on this path, that I belong here, and that I can participate where I'm at. I can be honest about where I'm at, and that's been very, very helpful to me, to not pretend to be further along than I am, and that I have time to look at these desires, to take a look at what I'm really wanting, to investigate that, to inquire into that. Why is it that I want it? What is it providing for me? Whatever that might be. I know that at times I believe myself to be a real servant at work. I try and be a servant at work. I try and be there for folks and help problem solve and just provide help where I can. But when I get surprised by resentment or a grievance or something along those lines, I have to back up and take a look at it and ask myself, what was I wanting out of it? Like right before the resentment happened, right before the grievance came about and hijacked my emotional energy and my thought processes, what was it that I wanted? And For me, the majority of the time that I find through inquiry is I find that I was wanting approval. I find that I was wanting some sort of attention, some sort of just basically wanting approval and recognition. And so when I'm honestly able to see that that desire trumped the desire to be with God, trumped the desire to be part of the process, to just be, to be whatever the Holy Spirit wanted me to be in that moment, then I am able to let it go. But I have to be honest about what I was wanting at that point in time. And the hardest part about desire that I'm finding with all this is when the ego is in charge of it, it's endless and it's contradictory. And the beautiful thing about having a clear aspiration is it provides singleness of purpose. It provides that space where once you make that decision that this is what I want above all else, awakening, truth, to join with Holy Spirit, I want that above all else. There is an energy within that that allows the other ones to fall away. It's not like, and I think one of the things that Krishnamurti was hitting on with this is we put our energy, our time, our attention into awakening. That's our purpose. Instead of putting all of our time and our energy into getting rid of these other things. It's kind of like when we go for God, everything else falls away. And but I have to be honest, and I have to see where my desire is at when these discomforts come up. Never seems to be an issue when I'm just bopping along happy, joyous, and free, which means things are going the way I want them to. That only seems to be an issue when things are not going the way I want. And that's the incredible opportunity to take a look at this ego and see what it's doing and that it's all over the place. And so we kind of do what we want to do until we don't want to do it anymore. And I think the title, The Renewing of the Mind, how that kind of speaks to desire is, through renewing of the mind, through inquiry, through letting go of these other things that we think we want, it is able to reveal more powerfully what our true desire is. There is if any of you have the Way of Mastery book, there is a chapter in there called The Thread of Desire, and I have read that quite a few times. And there is an exercise in there where you can start with a notebook and a list of just watching all the desires that can come into your mind. And writing every one of them down. And that fills up a very large page. And then you start kind of asking yourself questions about those desires. And then you kind of whittle it down to underneath it all. But it's through your own experience, right? It's you come to understand that what you truly want is peace. What you're truly after is joining. What you're truly after is love. And so that is an extremely valuable experience as well. And so let me see if there's anything else in my little notes. I do like one of the things of when he did talk about you know, when we're asking for help and how to put something into practice, and he makes the you know, the comment that when it's something that you want to do, we don't ask, how do I get this put into practice? We just, you know, naturally go and do and enjoy. But with this other stuff, we get stuck and we need help. And he uses the also the thing about the immediacy of your issue is going to help you understand it too. Like seeing a cobra, there's we know what to do if we were to come upon a cobra. So that's the kind of awareness we need to get to with all these things, all these desires that are moving us around so much, to get to the singleness of purpose. And once again, reminded that we don't necessarily have any trouble until it's something that brings us up against ourselves. And I think that the retreat that Regina is leading, this new retreat, in the world but not of it, embodying truth, the description of that, to learn to live from the spiritual knowledge that you believe and trust. You will look at what you value, what you want, basically. Assess if those values are aligned with your spiritual desire, and then learn how to bring those values and spiritual desire together into one strong foundation that you actually live, speak, and act from. So having the opportunity to move away from, I wish I could embody this. I wish I could live and speak from this truth all the time. And so how to integrate that. So that looks very helpful. And I think that that is about all that I have jotted down and chatting from. So I think we're going to go to another song. And then when we come back, if anybody else wants to share, we can certainly do that. So let me once again share my screen. Alrighty. Yes, and it was an opportunity to donate to Awakening Together, if you chose to do that. And now, and I was thinking that the one thing that I have figured out in gatherings is how to play my own music. So that's progress. I'm glad for that. Awesome. Now, does anybody want to share anything that they have on their mind or heart in regards to desire?
I would like to share.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you, Kelly. I just want to share something. The message I heard today is you have to start where you are. And this is a intuition and guidance that I got from actually last week's retreat that Regina led. She was doing again for the second time this year, releasing the I am bad belief. And she asked all the participants to do quite a bit of journaling during this week, during that week of the retreat. And that's what I came up with, because she led us through a process of her experience through her own self-inquiry journaling. And for some reason, I've done this retreat before, but for some reason, there was like a new light bulb that went off. That, oh, okay, so I'm going to try this, because obviously I haven't been doing that. And it was like I had a personal conversation with inner wisdom. And what came up is I was having, I don't know, doubt, fear, whatever. I was like, I feel like I'm starting over, wow. And then the inner wisdom said to me, so what? Start where you are. It's okay, And the other answer is, I thought you wanted to heal from this. And I went, oh. So it really helped me to see, what is it I really truly want? Because you were expressing that. You were like, yeah, well, what is it that I really want? Do I really want to lose the 10 pounds, or do I want to go get that donut? And the other part of it is too, like, if we continue to do the self, judgment within our own mind, that keeps us stuck as well. And so that's another issue I discovered through this last retreat. So it was, you're right where you need to be. And then I also got a great message from your homily is, if we aren't willing to look at where we're at and be honest about it, because that was what I appreciated more than anything, Kelly. I appreciate your honesty, because that's really where our growth is going to happen, by being truly brutally honest with ourselves. And then when you're willing to express that, to our community, it really will give you the inspiration that you're looking for, because you're outing yourself. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. So the point I was trying to make is, you get to a place where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this experience anymore. I want to do something different. So I appreciate your honesty and your message today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I guess that brings us pretty much to the bottom of the hour. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn to finish up. And then we have the fellowship following at the bottom of the hour as soon as this closes up. So again, thank you all for being here. Have a blessed and beautiful Sunday. And we will see you in the sanctuary in the coming week. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. This was our weekly gathering that we hold online. For more information, you can visit our website at awakening-together.org, or you can subscribe to our Awakening Together channel and click the bell for more notifications when we post our weekly gatherings. Thank you again for watching.